Hi everyone, my name is Robin. Welcome to my talk, Leading Through Change, Embrace the Future of Manufacturing. I'm very sad that I cannot be in Dresden with all of you today, but nevertheless, we thought it would be great to record the talk. And so I want to talk in the next 20 to 25 minutes about the future of manufacturing and in particular about two elements that I think are very crucial for it. On the one hand, it's people, and on the other hand, it's technology. And I'm convinced, and actually our whole company is convinced, that the future of manufacturing can be only built upon these two elements as a combination of both of them, and not on a single one of it. And yeah, with further ado, let's jump right into it. So maybe quickly about myself. So my name is Robin. I come from southern Germany. Grew up near Stuttgart. Then spent a few years studying in Karlsruhe, industrial engineering and management. Spent 4.5 years at Point Nine Capital. Point Nine Capital is an early stage VC where we invested in early stage companies, in particular in the B2B area, which means in software companies and marketplaces. The fund invested in both Europe and also North America, and we wrote checks between 1 to 3 million. I spent a lot of time in the German-speaking region, and if you're doing this, manufacturing is one of the areas where at least we saw a lot of companies popping up from 2016 on until today. And so the more I was basically spending time in manufacturing and, in this fancy term called Industry 4.0, the more I got really interested into the whole industry and what change will actually come to the industry. Then people approached me basically and were asking, hey, Robin, can you share a few links or articles you're reading? And so 3.5 years, I basically started the first iteration of my newsletter that's called The Future of Manufacturing. I've been writing it now for 3.5 years. It goes out monthly now, and it evolved from like a pure link list to like a really fully fledged newsletter. And so I left Point Nine at the end of last year. And from the beginning of this year, I started to build the Future of Manufacturing community, basically a community for people who want to discuss the future of manufacturing, who want to share their opinions and their thoughts on the industry, who also maybe want to help others better understand what's happening when it comes to new technologies such as AI or IoT, or how to make use of all the data in manufacturing. And on top of that, and that's my main focus, together with my co-founder, we started Aveo. It's an online learning, we're basically building online learning programs specifically around the digital transformation. To give you a quick glimpse how this can look like, it's basically like this at the moment. So we offer different online courses. Our core focus at the moment is on digital transformation in manufacturing, and you see here a little bit like how the course looks like. So we go from giving you an overview to how to assess new business opportunities, for the shop floor, for example, how to structure a successful pilot project, how to manage different stakeholders, how to implement change management, and then also like how to implement actually solutions on the shop floor. If you're interested, go on www.aveo.one. You'll find more about the course. It will start again in next October, and maybe I'll see you there. But let's talk about the future and the future of manufacturing. So I think there are many different ways to think about the future of manufacturing, and probably everybody has like a different image in their heads. And I think it's roughly 10 years ago that the German government coined this term Industry 4.0. Everybody had really high hopes, everybody had thought, hey, everything will be connected, machines talk to humans, talk to machines again, and everything will be in the cloud. I think maybe we're not there yet. We're getting there at some point. We're there not there yet. But I think if people think about the future of manufacturing, it can look like this. Somebody who's wearing a VR goggles, controlling maybe a digital twin, seeing like a machine in a virtual world, and also maybe the real-time flow of data to the machine. Or it can look like this, where somebody controls a robot only via iPad. There's no need to program the robot anymore. It's all automatically done by drag and drop to an iPad. Or it can also look like this, where you have like a very modular production system. You have some robots that, to a very high automated extent, they can also already produce what the factory is manufacturing. And this is actually one of the pictures, and you see the founder in the middle of Arrival, which is a company that's manufacturing electrical cars. And I think no matter how you think about it, all of these three pictures, there's one very important element. It always involves humans. People always play a big role. However, we actually have a problem. From a macroeconomical perspective, if we think about Europe, if we think about Germany, we have a really big problem when it comes to people at the moment. companies are facing a massive skills gap. I think it's a fact. If you talk to people in the industry, the problem awareness around this problem is really, really high. Due to automation, digitization, 70% of employees even say they don't even have mastered the skills they need for their jobs today, which I think is a massive amount of people. 75% of CEOs say not finding the right skill is actually a threat to their business. It's a really big problem, not only for the employees, but also for C-level people, CEOs and managers. And the problem is companies cannot just hire their way out of this problem. So if we look at our age structure in Europe, also in Germany, 35 million people will have 35 million fewer people in the working age between 2019 and 2050 in the EU. And at the same time, the competition for talent is massively increasing. 90% of the S&P 100 recruited for the same 39 critical roles. Right? In Germany, for example, you have now Tesla building a factory here, not far from Berlin. You have Apple, building a big campus in Munich and so on. They're all competing for the same talent. So the only way actually for all these companies is to combine technology and to focus more on people, right? To focus on up-leveling their current employees, moving them into roles, which they need in the future, giving them the necessary skills actually, so that they can help to transform their company and bring them to the digital age. And so I think it's a very interesting also shift in the industry where I think there has been a mindset for many companies that a lot of the investments usually went into machines, where now I think it's really important that also this investment not only goes into machines, but at least also similarly into people. Right? So HR is not a payroll function. HR is actually like a strategic priority. If you're a small company, if you're a startup, and that's also what I've been seeing and experiencing from the investor side, the team makes or breaks it. People are the most important asset in a startup, and this is also similarly true at larger companies. And empowering people is not only a priority for the HR department, but actually across the board. Right? So it's really a strategic priority. How do you build your workforce in the future? How you make actually your company future-proof by up-leveling your current employees? Because again, what we've seen also with the numbers, you cannot just hire the way out of this problem. And it's not only me saying this. I had many discussions with many manufacturing companies in the past few months, with HR leaders, with C-level people and managers. I think it's a very strong confirmation for this, that this needs to come. I think we're not there yet. Many companies are not there yet. I think I'll give you a few examples after that slide of a few companies that are trying to do a lot already. But also what you can see here from Lawrence Borsidi, the former CEO of GE, what he was saying was basically, I'm convinced that nothing we do is more important than hiring and developing people. At the end of the day, you bet on people and not on strategies. And I think he's just 100% accurate with this. And so if you actually see, what the current larger companies are doing already, they already invest heavily in building a digital workforce, even today already, right? So if you look at Bosch, for example, they call themselves even a learning company, and they spend at least 250 million on learning and development every year. Another example is Siemens. They just increased their budget for digital upscaling by 100 million, on top of actually the 500 million they already invest into learning and development. And then I think also a very interesting case is Volkswagen. They started their own campus, which they call Faculty 73, where they basically train people to become a software developer, roughly like 2 years ago. They only have like roughly 100 spaces at the moment. So it's like they need many more software developers, but they're basically trying also to solve the problem by their own and train software developers. And on top of that, they, for example, also partner with other education providers such as École 42. And I think it's interesting if we think about, focusing on people, making HR a strategic priority. It's not something that is so new, right? I think many people, many companies here in this industry, they have adopted what's called lean manufacturing. And Toyota was spearheading this, of course, already like decades ago, which are basically the basic concept, which says, when everyone works together and each person can see their contribution to the whole, the system benefits. So you already see here actually lean manufacturing is something which underlines the empowerment of people and also giving them, the power to do things, to change things along the process, because, they also have the first-hand insight to these processes. Another example that I think is really interesting and really, really cool is from Audi. So they basically work together with a project, and they work together with frontline workers on flexible working hours. How can we, I mean, if you're working remotely, if you're like, let's say, a desk worker like me, I have my computer, I can work kind of like whenever and from where I want. If you work, of course, in a shop floor, it's not that flexible, but they basically wanted to offer more flexible working hours for the employees. And so the result of this project was what you can see here in this quote. 15 workers have done an incredible job at what is a massive challenge for professional change managers. So basically, Audi, gathered the people who are working on at the front line, gathered them together, helped them basically to facilitate a discussion and to see, what could be concepts that they can have more flexible working hours. And instead of, making it top down, it was more like a bottom up kind of decision and process they went through. And apparently the project was really successful. And I think it's again a great, just successful example that if you give people the power, if you basically give them the room and creativity, usually there's a really good solution for these kinds of problems, because again, they also have the first-hand insights to this problem. So that's what I wanted to tell about the people side. Again, I think we're living in a time at the moment where the talent market is super competitive, where the skills gap is just increasing all the time, where I think jobs change dramatically and will change even faster in the future due to new technologies and automation. And so I think it's especially also the company's role to help their current employees to move to different job roles, to basically keep up with increasing job expectations. And if you want to talk about this topic, as you can see and maybe hear from me, it's one of our core jobs, what we're doing at the moment. So happy to continue the discussion. But let's look now at the second lens, which I think also is an important aspect of the technology side. If you just look at the numbers, and this is like a report from GP Bullhound, it's actually mind-blowing the speed at which investments are accelerating, and the cost, how fast it goes down. If you think about these devices and like industrial robots and sensors, and I can give here like a few numbers. So it's really mind-blowing how cheap hardware also become and will become in the future. And I think it's a great sign that we're making so fast progress with technology. And then if we go to the next slide, it's not working. And so it's not only that the hardware costs are changing, but technology also enables actually new business models. Mobility in car, I think, is a great example for this. So here's just like a graphic from CB Insights about disrupting the car. With Germans, I think, are very known for loving cars and buying and driving a lot of cars. But I think what you can see, what's happening with technologies such as like Uber and Lyft, these kind of apps that I think especially for medium distances, actually the car ownership gets a little bit disrupted, because you don't need to own a car if you want to drive 5 to 50 million with all these services which are just a tap away from your smartphone. Similar for long distances with car sharing, especially for people who are living in a city. I'm here in Berlin. I mean, car sharing is all around here. And also for micromobility, we saw a lot of people now using scooters, electrical bikes, for example, right? Bike sharing as an alternative actually to owning a car. And this will also come more and more to manufacturing, right? I think there's, for example, the shift also from just selling machines, selling a product, to like selling a service. For example, pay-per part or pay-per-use, which can only be enabled by having new technologies. And so I think manufacturing as a service is another one that's enabled by technology, which at least is doing an impact on the industry. So you do not have to talk to your usual supplier, but you can maybe just go on a platform, upload your CAD file, and then get parts delivered right to your door from a third party. So having kind of like this Amazon experience that from the consumer world, but now in the B2B world. And I think what's really interesting for people who are spending a lot of time maybe in their own company, it's sometimes maybe a bit hard to see what's going on left and right, and what's actually the speed of technology, the speed of innovation that's happening. And so when I was spending a lot of time on digital manufacturing, on, let's say, this Industry 4.0 startups, I just saw more and more of them in 2016, 2017. New companies were basically popping up here and there, and every other week I just discovered new startups that were trying to solve some sort of problem in manufacturing, and it became so many different companies that I was creating just a simple Google sheet, dropping all the names out there, and maybe just writing down what the company does, and quickly I had like 50, 60, 70, 80 companies, and so I was like, Robin, how can you keep up with this, and maybe how can you get an overview? And so I was basically just putting them into different applications, what you can see here, right? Like such as analytics and efficiency, shop floor, workflow, app platform, inspection, robotics. And then I created what I call like the first Industry 4.0 landscape, basically a map of these industrial startups with a particular focus on Europe. And that's how it looks like in winter 2018. So that's kind of like was the second or third version that I did, roughly like 100 companies, I would say. And now I think what will be interesting, and you can look it up on my blog if you want to zoom in into these logos, but three and a half years later, roughly, so in summer 2021, it basically looks like this. So, and I think it's always very interesting to see just the change, right? If I go back again, how it looked back then in 2018 and how it looks in summer 2021. I need to say, of course, it's far from being complete. It wasn't complete in 2018. It's still by far not complete, but I think it gives you a very good overview that a lot of stuff actually happened within these 3.5 years. And yes, these are young companies partially, some of them might fail, they won't exist anymore in 2-3 years, but some of them will become really big. Some of them will become really successful. And they also will for sure try to increase their market share over time, and maybe will be competing head to head with one of your companies or what you're offering. And I think what's interesting, if you look at the different application areas, you see, robotics has increased a lot, for example. Also many more companies in the whole analytics space. Recently, I saw a strong increase in the more shop floor, workflow, app platform area, where basically, you have platforms that are specifically targeted for the shop floor that want to connect different machines and systems together with humans. So, for example, that you have your work instructions digitally instead of like a paper lying somewhere in the factory. And I think it's a really just, good overview of seeing what actually happened within a few years. And if you now think about, hey, what will happen in the next 10 years? I mean, this will only get bigger. Companies in there will only get bigger. The landscape will only get bigger. Application will be just like more. And I think there's a lot actually happening, which sometimes, can be a bit overlooked if you just, focusing on your own company. I wanted to give also 4 examples of a few companies. I don't have any incentive with these kind of companies. I'm not attached to them. I mean, I know them here and there, but I don't know much more. But from the outside, I think they're really interesting. I think all of them basically have at least a significant amount of customers by now. So on the one hand, for example, there's Nevis, which now is, which is building like a mobile mapping of indoor spaces and an enterprise-ready digital twin solution. So you basically see the factory floor as a digital twin. The companies from Munich, Shaper 3D from Hungary, they're kind of like building an intuitive CAD tool built to make 3D modeling quicker and easier. So you kind of like have your iPad and you have the Apple Pencil, and you can easily sketch in 3D different parts and in a super fast way. Instrumental, a company from the US, which basically helps to discover issues and do failure analysis for the assembly line and quality monitoring on like one single platform where you basically can see if there's like an issue from what you're producing. And then German Bionic, I think also an interesting company from Germany. It's a fully connected exoskeleton system for industrial use. So basically you can use it as a worker to not break your neck, break your back when you're holding or lifting heavy stuff. And I think, again, we have 4 different companies here. They're all using technology or software in some sort of way, or even AI like Instrumental, but they all still involve humans. Humans, and you can see it even in the picture, always play a big role for these companies. And with this in mind, I think if we think about Industry 4.0 and looking backwards, maybe we haven't been there where we would have hoped to be 10 years ago when this term was coined. Maybe not everything today is already digitally, not every device is talking to each other today. We don't have lights out factories, meaning completely autonomous factories yet. And I think it also will still take a lot of time. However, I think let's not look back. Let's look more in the future. I think Europe is in a great position actually to come up with a lot of like innovation in the sector. I think we have super many talented engineers and people working in manufacturing. I would wish to see more new companies also emerging. I think there's a lot of potential, and I think probably, I cannot say it better than Steve Jobs said it with like, let's go invent tomorrow instead of worrying about what happened yesterday. And with this in mind, I want to thank you very much for listening to my talk, even if I couldn't be there in person. Really sorry. If you have any questions or you would like to continue the conversation with me, please get in touch. You see my email address here. You can join our Future of Manufacturing community. You see the link over there. And if you're interested in our online courses, sign up at aveo.one or just hit me up personally. And thanks again also for the Dresden Robotics Festival for having me. Bye-bye.